I'm proud, I'm proud, proud to be an African, African like you. I am happy, I am happy, happy to be black, black like you. We were fearful that our voices would be transferred into the machines.
One of the most memorable moments of the trip for me was when we were at the Apartheid Museum. I would say that the spirit of South Africa is best embodied through the children that we met. Kathleen had called me over and asked if I could help her teach these children that she met. There was a group of kids, I think they were middle school, high school children. And so as we split up into two groups, I had about 5 or 6 students, and we decided to go through the museum. And what they were having problems with was understanding the very text-heavy exhibit. And as I was walking through the exhibit, after reading through so much, I just started feeling overwhelmed and started to cry. I just realized that these are the children that we're reading about, and they just seem so full of life and not affected. And so when they asked me, they saw me crying, they asked me, why are you crying? And I said, well, you know, doesn't this affect you? How does this affect you? And they said, you know, our parents taught us to just let go of it. And they started kissing and hugging me, and I just lost it.
The thing that stood out for me when we first got to Johannesburg was the fact that most of the buildings in the downtown area had barbed wire, security was a real threat. Mm-hmm. It was almost like a city under siege.
Yeah.
And when we were driving throughout the countryside, you see the masses of people who were down and out and, you know, disenfranchised. And then you go into the center of the town, and the people with means, you know, they're barbed wires, and I'm sure they had armed security.
As a result of apartheid, I mean, it's only 10 years past a system which systematically reinforced class differences. And so what you're seeing is the result of that. And the class differences are largely on race, because that's what their apartheid or apartment system was based upon. So you have a majority of black South Africans, and you have a minority of white South Africans. And your income is with the white South Africans, where most of your black South Africans are still struggling.
In the hostels, the IFP members staying in the hostels. You saw black on black violence. The IFP members with the red cloth on their head, they resided in the hostels there on the left hand side. They were always in conflict with the residents on the right hand side, the residents who predominantly were the ANC supporters. And because of the intimidation, there used to be violence between the two. And hence the government actually is not approving the hostels. They say the hostels are they're going to get rid. It's an old system of apartheid, which was introduced by the old apartheid government. So they don't want the hostels anymore. You know, it's a very filthy area because, you know, they're not servicing them.
And one of the books that I read talked a lot about truth and reconciliation, and when you read about apartheid, you can't help but become incredibly angry, and angry for what the leaders of the country did to classification to blacks and coloreds, and even in disservice to white people and the economy overall, to sort of suppress everyone into little groups and not let the country flourish, because it's really a beautiful country.
Before going on a trip, you know, I understood that there were various classifications, white, colored, black, but because I've grown up in America, things are pretty much polarized, you know, white, black, and then that's it. You're either in one group or the other. So I really didn't respect the fact that there was a third classification. So when we went over there and when we first arrived at the hotel, I was observing the way the staff interacted with our group. And you know, with our group it was interesting because the head of our group is a black man. And I could see everyone in the hotel saying, wow, you know, this black man, this man of color is actually over a group of, you know, whites, and there were blacks and stuff like that. And so I could tell by their expressions why they said, okay, you know, what is this group? And one thing that really stood out was the whites and the colored staff. They would talk to us freely, but the black staff wouldn't say one word. I could see something in their eyes. It was almost like they wanted to ask, well, who are you guys? You know, you have a black leader and you have, the whites are following him. What's going on with this, you know? But they wouldn't say anything. So the next day, you know, I just say, hey, how are you doing? You know, I'm from Chicago, and I gave a little bit of my background. Oh my God. It was almost like you opened the floodgates to communications. It was almost as if they had to receive permission to talk to you before they really opened up. And that really stuck in my mind. I felt that a lot of that behavior, it was a remnant from the apartheid regime.
The only way for these people to overcome what they've been through is to talk about it openly and forgive.
Welcome to Mandela's house. I'm a volunteer guide. My name is Kosi. He lived in this house 15 years before he went to prison from 1946 to 1961.
And in Nelson Mandela's house, there is a letter that struck me. It was from the University of Michigan. And it was a group of congressmen and women who had written to Nelson Mandela after his release from jail.
There's a very interesting letter there from a state of Michigan. They were requesting Senior Bush, the father, to apologize to Mr. Mandela for the role the CIA played on his arrest in 1962. But George Bush never apologized. People from a state of Michigan, they are the one who did apologize on behalf of him. When he went to prison, he was 44 years old. Mr. Mandela was a freeman. 11 February 1990, after 27 years in prison, he was 71 years old. After Mr. Mandela was a freeman in 1990, he came back in the housing. People used to come every day, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, just to sing and dance that Mr. Mandela was a freeman. In 94, he became the first black president of South Africa.
Each time one of us touches the soil of this land, we feel a sense of personal renewal. The national mood changes as the seasons change. We are moved by a sense of joy and exhilaration when the grass turns green and the flowers bloom.